Alrighty, and we are live. As our founder likes to say, Chad Jensen, he says, give it a second to breathe. Say hello to everybody in the chat. Wanna Beast, how you doing? Dylan Van Arks, Kenneth Booker, always coming in. Charlie Beagle, Robert Caslow. I mean, a lot of familiar faces here. And if you guys haven't commented before, get in here. Welcome to Mile High Insiders today. My name is Nicholas Kendall, and I am joined by my co-host, Luke Patterson. Luke, how you doing on this fine Saturday?
Doing excellent. I'm on location in Vail, Colorado. It's beautiful up here, but you know what? Vacation aside, I'm excited to start some football talk with you on Saturday night. We've been texting all day, just talking a little bit about some of the defensive secondary. I know we got into it a little bit pre-show, but I was in on that press conference, man, and what a press conference for the offensive coordinator, the defensive coordinator, and the special teams coach. But I think today we want to look at Ed Donatel a little bit, Ed the Don. So I'm fantastic. I'm ready to talk Broncos football as July 28th. Well, it's coming up.
Right around the corner. It'll be here before you know it. Make sure you guys find us on Twitter at Luke Patterson LP and at Nick Kendall MHH. Obviously, we do the best we can to facilitate and have conversations with you guys there. Be accessible. Subscribe to our show wherever you listen to these podcasts and leave us a rating. We really do appreciate it. Subscribe, share the show as well. That helps us reach new listeners, new following, and just helps the podcast grow so we can continue to bring you good content. Don't miss out on all our great off-season content at milehighhuddle.com of the Maven Coalition and Sports Illustrated. Also know that our podcast is powered by Overtime Media. So today, we're getting after it. We're talking about Ed Donatel, the Broncos' second-year defensive coordinator. His second stint in Denver? Is it his third stint in Denver? Second stint in Denver.
I want to say it's his second stint in Denver. Yep.
Yes. So been here before, been a long-time guy with Vic Fangio, and everybody's talking about Drew Lock, the Broncos' offense. I mean, offense is sexy. It scores points. That's what the ladies love. They love touchdowns. Chicks dig the long ball, but chicks also dig the touchdown. However, this Broncos team, as much excitement as there is around the offense, the backbone is still going to be the defense for 2020. It's one of the most expensive defenses in football, but with that comes one of the oldest defenses in football as well. On the counterpoint, that allows the Broncos to have one of the cheapest and youngest offenses. Just the nature of kind of balancing team building there. But you were on, like you said, you were not on location, but you were present Zoom-wise, just as present as we are, for Ed Donatel's press conference. And I'm just curious, your general takeaways. And he started off, I believe, talking with a Broncos rookie.
Yeah, so anytime Ed Donatel gets to the mic, I'm always happy and all ears. And one of the reasons being, he's very reserved. He's a cat that doesn't share a lot of words out publicly, but is well received within his locker room. And when he does share those words publicly, you should probably listen to what he says. He's a no BS kind of guy, very old school coach, believes in fundamentals. That's one of the reasons why I think Ed Donatel and Vic Fangio pounded the table. That's a common thing I'm going to be talking about in this podcast because, well, offensive coordinator Pat Shurmur insisted he did not pound the table for Melvin Gordon. But I'm thinking defensive coordinator Ed Donatel, he liked Michael Ojemudia out of Iowa. He's a fundamental tackler. It's something we talked a little bit about last week. He said, we're delighted to have Michael. The very first thing coach says is Michael brings size. He's a physical player. He brings speed, and he's able to judge the deep ball. Now, when you look at the Denver Broncos draft, what is the whole point of free agency in the draft? It's to get better. But who are the Broncos aiming for? They're aiming for the Kansas City Chiefs. If you don't start to compete with the number one dog in your division, the AFC West, then you're not going to get anywhere in the NFL. How do you do that? Well, Pat Mahomes is going to shred you up. He's definitely going to get you. He's that good. He may very well be one of the best when it's all said and done. I'm not going to go there just yet. But Ed Donatel talked about how significant it is to have a rookie that seems to be leaps and bounds where he should be right now from an intellectual standpoint. He's very impressed with this young man in virtual meetings. He seems very impressed with his tone and accepting education, I guess, through these Zoom press conferences and something else Coach talked about, some challenges and things like that. But Coach Ed Donatel, for being one of those old school coaches, he definitely talked about some of the advantages of having Zoom press conferences and getting more one-on-one time with players. And even though it's not necessarily sitting down with your old coach in the room, popping some film on, you're still getting a face-to-face. And when it's a face-to-face with a vet like Ed Donatel, you better take heed.
A little harder to hide in the back of the classroom when you're front and center on the computer screen as well. So that's interesting. I'm curious. Hopefully, at some point, you'll get to talk to Michael Ojemudia, and I would be curious if you could ask him about what's going on right now. Everybody, drink. What's happening at the University of Iowa? Obviously, there's an investigation going on right now with the strength and conditioning coach and a toxic behavior, racial behavior as well, or anti-racial behavior. So it would be interesting. But Michael Ojemudia, something I heard around the Iowa program was just how much of a good worker he was and how intelligent he was. And one thing that really grabbed me about this comment from Ed Donatel about Ojemudia is the points that he talked about as far as the size, the speed, the ability to judge the ball down the field, and then also talking about how good of a tackler and a hitter he can be on top of the intelligence. All of this says to me, obviously, Ojemudia, the best case scenario, he plays boundary corner. He runs a, 4.45 40. He's 6'1". He's long. He's a big guy. I mean, that size and that speed is really valuable. Those guys tend to go much higher. And I think if Ojemudia would have played at, let's say, Alabama, where they asked him to do more press man, he might have gone, middle of the second round. But he played at Iowa, simple scheme, don't get beat over the top. But anyway, the main point I'm coming back to is if everything works out for Ojemudia, boundary corner. But reading into this, I think there is I guess we'll call it a fallback option of Ojemudia moving to safety, especially in the Fangio defense. The size, the intelligence, and the tackling, not getting beat over the top. Again, preferably boundary cornerback, more value. But I do think there's a contingency plan there with Ojemudia, the potential to play safety. It's one of the things that he came to Iowa first for as well.
Yeah, he's definitely got it there. And I think one thing that the Broncos have to try to replace, unfortunately, and I'm still bitter about it, is losing Will Parks. Will Parks, you said it best. He was the Swiss Army knife of that defense. I remember talking to you in our mock drafts and everything like that, and you're like, man, I don't know who they're going to get to try to replace Will Parks. Now, I'm not saying that Will Parks and Michael Ojemudia are the same player because they're not. However, I think the expectations for him to not only contribute on the special teams unit, but to contribute in multiple positions on the defense is definitely going to be something that's expected of this rookie corner. You look at Kareem Jackson, who's a veteran, who I think is probably, if Vic Fangio decides he's going to go with team captains this year, Kareem Jackson's got to be one of them. I mean, that guy just seems to be the ultimate alpha leader, first class, humble at the same time, but he's the alpha dog in that room. Well, when you're alpha dog and your best, arguably, defensive secondary player is switching from corner to safety and doesn't really, he has his set preference, but he's not going to let anything get in the way of his responsibility to try to win football games, especially in the defensive secondary. So while I don't necessarily agree that I like Michael Ojemudia at safety, he can play it, you bet. And I think the expectation for him to learn all of these defensive secondary positions is there. I know it's something that Ed Donatel prides himself with his secondary unit. They have to know each other's jobs. It started with Chris Harris Jr., always talking about it in the Wade Phillips defense. Get ready for AJ Bouye to start talking about it with this defense. Justin Simmons talks about it already. Kareem Jackson talks about it already. They have to know each other's positions so that way they can have successful defensive stops.
Yeah, and just coming back around to Michael Ojemudia for a second, I do think, again, like I said, ideally, boundary corner, there's much more value there. Broncos have a long-term need there as well, hence, early third-round pick. But if he does fail there, I think it'll be because of his hips. He is a solid straight-line athlete. He's got length. There's some press potential there. Granted, we didn't always see it on tape at Iowa. We saw a little bit more of it at the Senior Bowl, where they did much more variety one-on-ones. Those drills are made so at least the one-on-ones on the outside are made for the wide receiver to win. And Ojemudia was one of the few cornerbacks that was holding up consistently. So there's hope there. I just think that my biggest question for him is the press, if that can hold up, and then also the hip looseness, or the hip looseness.
He's got to swivel. He's got to keep those hips swiveling.
Yes.
And in that transition, it seems like you're talking about that transition. That's a very difficult thing. That's something that I really liked Parnell Motley out of the University of Oklahoma. I think he was actually picked up by the Tampa Bay Bucks as an undrafted free agent. So he's down there with good old Tommy and Gronk. But I digress. Michael Ojemudia I'm pumped to see him. And Nick, maybe you can answer this question. Can he jam receivers at the line? If we're talking about a cornerback that's so physical, and I know he is a zone scheme corner, and that's great because this is a zone scheme defense, but I'm thinking you're talking physicality and everything. I'm not saying he needs to jam Tyreek Hill, because if you can't do that, you're going to get smoked. It's just that simple. But can he bring some of that physicality to at least try to jam some of these big receivers?
You would think so with the length, the size he has. It's not that he's just tall. He's also got decent BMI for a cornerback as well. He's not a thin, wiry guy out there. He's got a little bit of mass to him. So that's something that theoretically he could. But again, Iowa's system is very conservative. It's bend, don't break. There's not a lot of press man. Yes, exactly. And that's one thing Ojemudia, we talked about it, I think, 2 episodes ago, that he is incredible at not getting beat over the top. And that's really important for this defense. But if you're talking about that aggressive at the line of scrimmage press ability, you just didn't see it at Iowa. Yeah. So at the Senior Bowl, you did see it a little bit. He was talked about as a late 4th rounder, and he rose to the mid-3rd after a really good Senior Bowl and Combine as well. And also because he's one of the few guys in that range that does have that boundary ability. So most of those guys, go ahead.
Well, and is that something that you think a young cornerback would pick up, especially after his rookie season? I mean, my goodness, we're talking about rookie expectations for a cornerback who's probably going to be a starter. I would imagine a defensive coordinator with the respect and the caliber that Ed Donatel has amongst the league, he's going to be tasked with developing this young corner. And Champ Bailey, just for a little bit of leftovers from the last podcast, well, Champ Bailey said, attach yourself to A.J. Bouye, something I think they will do. But ultimately, man, I like the pick out of Michael Ojemudia the more time goes on. I think some of the things that lack on his resume, he will make up for in the running game. I think he will make up for intellectually and in the film room. And I think he's going to be a great locker room guy. A couple years down the road, I mean, it's hard in this current state of affairs where we can't talk to these players. We would have been done with OTAs, would have been out there for rookie minicamp, and we just haven't had it. So I can't wait to talk to the young man because, he's smart, he's talented, and the Broncos defense is happy to have him.
All excellent points. And you bring it back to, again, Will Parks you talked about earlier. You know which position Will Parks actually played the most snaps at last year? Which alignment?
Was it in the nickel?
It was that the personnel-wise, it was the nickel and dime, but he actually played a majority of his snaps in the slot. 294 of his 624 snaps. That includes the special team snaps as well, so I can't tear it down. But he was essentially a slot cornerback last year. Came in, obviously once Bryce Callahan wasn't going, they had to find something out there. Duke Dawson struggled. Will Parks comes in, really stabilized his position. So it'll be interesting to see how they do fill that out this year because, Trey Marshall, you don't really see him in that role. Maybe it's Kareem Jackson. We'll see.
Well, and we talk expectations, and you talked about what my impression was of the press conference. I'm a little confused. They're telling me Bryce Callahan's ready to go, Nick. They're saying Bryce Callahan's ready to go. It's something I've heard last year over and over again. Is Bryce Callahan, do you think he's really ready to go, or are the Broncos trying to build up what has been a really soured free agent signing from over a year ago?
I'm such a wet blanket. Maybe it's the scientist in me, but I'm skeptical until I see it. Prove it. Go out there and prove it. And I actually did before that free agency period started. I have a Bears contact, and he told me that the Bears were scared to death of Callahan's foot and the long term. Didn't think he'd finish his next contract. Didn't think he'd finish his career at that next contract. So, they're saying the right things. But again, you talked about it. There's no OTAs. There's no rookie minicamp. Until they're out there on the field, I need to see it to believe it. So I'm optimistic, I guess, in a ways. Like hopefully that'll happen, but to count on him, I think that's a recipe for heartbreak.
Yeah, and just to bring it full circle for Broncos country, so Coach Donatel was asked on cornerback Bryce Callahan and whether or not his foot injury is progressing and how meetings are being held virtually. And he said, quote, first of all, on the medical side, he's ready to go. He's running full speed. He'll be right in our camp and ready to go. He's been totally engaged. There's just been a great turnout with our players. We've had to look for new ways to teach. So reading between the lines a little bit there, Nick, he was quick to say he's healthy, but then he was also quick to say the Zoom meetings are going great and kind of wanted to get away from that. And it's one thing I like about Coach. I subscribe to the fact, watch what they do, not what they say. But with Ed Donatel and Vic Fangio, they're very literal folks. They're as old school as it can get. And that was just a little bit of a revealing answer for me. I'm not sure how I'm feeling about Bryce Callahan.
And I'm curious to see what his role will be. I think ideally you'll have Ojemudia and Bouye on the boundary with Callahan in the slot, but there's going to be some competition there. Ojemudia is going to have to beat out Bosby. Yadam's still on this roster. Maybe it clicks for Yadam this year. I wouldn't bury him yet. So it will be very interesting to see what happens there. Callahan, though, man, if he can play, that would be just such a huge get for this defense because, this might be before that you and I started getting here, but defense is – there's been recent studies, like Pro Football Focus, say what you will about them, but I do think some of their analytical stuff is interesting. Not the player grade so much, but just some of the team building stuff. And they've actually had a couple studies where defense is much more about the depth of the unit rather than the star players. So and that makes a lot of sense, especially for the secondary. If you have Peyton Manning at quarterback and you have, let's say, Champ Bailey and Darrelle Revis at cornerback, and then, gosh, who is somebody that just got eviscerated? Let's say I'm playing the third cornerback. Heck, I would get killed.
Sure.
So the offense dictates where the ball goes. So what does that mean? Having Champ Bailey and Darrelle Revis is nice, but if that third cornerback you have is such a liability, they're going to go there every time. They're going to scheme it open. They're going to pick on you. We saw it with Peyton Manning when he was the Patriots quarterback, picking on that poor Broncos cornerback. And gosh, it would have been way back in like 2005, 2004. So that's really important. If Callahan can come, that's just another quality starter that can go out there and add depth to that secondary, that cornerback. There's a lot of names there. I just don't trust many of the names there. So really important.
Yeah. And I wanted to give a quick shout out. Terry Randall, use the Force, Luke. I appreciate you so much, Terry. Thank you for tuning in on Saturday night. We're getting a lot of comments. We're going to get John behind the glass. He's hooking everything up behind the scenes. So I want to give a big thanks to John. John's been one of our biggest supporters in helping Mile High Huddle. So this is coming in from Mr. James Campbell. Thank you, James, for tuning in. Remembering Pat Bowlen, the finest owner in sports. And Nick, Pat Bowlen, I wish I could say I had the opportunity and the pleasure to meet the man, but I never did. I've got various opportunities to compete against John Elway's son in high school and things like that, but never just had an opportunity to sit down with the Hall of Fame owner and Hall of Fame man that Pat Bowlen is. But I can tell you I was at the memorial service at the stadium for Pat Bowlen where the entire state came out. His family extended hours to meet every single one of Broncos country that came to the stadium to shake their hand, give them a hug, way before the social distancing and all this other stuff when the world was normal and we could actually try to unify a little bit. That's something I'd like to get back to. Football's right around the corner, but Pat Bowlen, one of my favorite human beings. I want to be number one in everything. He was the best competitor, but one of the biggest things that I've taken away learning about Pat Bowlen is that he was one of the best listeners. And too many times, Nick, I'm talking too much and I'm not listening enough. And that applies to a lot of things other than sports. That applies to my life as a parent, as a husband, as a friend, and just a citizen in the country right now. Tell me a little bit about Pat Bowlen from your eyes and what he means to you as a passionate Broncos analyst and member of Broncos country.
Well, I would have been probably about 5 years old when I first really had an idea of who Pat Bowlen was. When John always said when Pat Bowlen raised up the trophy and said this one's for John, that one will stick in my mind for
goosebumps.
Forever. Yeah.
Even when you say that, I get goosebumps, man. It's just, it's beautiful.
But Pat, obviously the will to win, putting everything, the fur coat, yes, absolutely. Doing everything right as far as putting the team in position to win. And I think there's something to be said about his leadership style where, he didn't have to go out there and be the Jerry Jones guy soaking up the spotlight and hanging out on his yacht. Instead, he would go around. He said he listened, but not only did he listen, he put intelligent people around him and empowered them to do their job. He didn't overstep. He asked, what do you need me to do? How can I help you to be the best that you are? And that's great leadership. That's what great leadership does. So I think, obviously hats off to him. The Broncos might not even be in Denver if he hadn't come around. That he was a key figure in the AFL NFL merger, which the NFL would not be the way it is today. And also one of the first guys to really get Monday Night Football going.
Loads of money. Pat Bowlen is responsible for so much of the primetime football that we see with the networks, whether it be NFL Network and ESPN doing some sort of collusion or collision, or something like that. Pat Bowlen, man, he's one of those guys that seem to trust his people, remain loyal to his people. But I want to talk about Pat Bowlen in the Denver community because Pat Bowlen has meant so much to so many. Setting up the Denver Broncos Boys and Girls Club here in Denver, I've been able to personally see how much that has affected so many children and adults, parents and everything else in our great state of Colorado. Pat Bowlen, a very giving man, someone that's I think about quite a bit whenever I'm just, out in the garage tinkering around and I see my Mr. B pin on a Bronco flag or something like that. Or I use his quote, I want to be number one at everything at the end of every one of my emails. It's just, I love him. I love Pat, thinking about him, miss him. But the Broncos are trying to figure out how to establish a legacy, a new identity. Now that, Pat Bowlen and the Bowlen family are trying to figure out the direction they're going to go with the trust. So I definitely appreciate that comment. That's something that's a very heartfelt comment for Broncos country. So I appreciate you sharing that too, Nick, because Pat Bowlen, man, he means a lot to me, man. I've never even met the dude, but he's responsible, I think, for putting out the Broncos' success. And one of the best reasons why I love football and why I'm doing this today.
And who knows what's going to happen with the Broncos ownership situation, whether the team goes to Brittany or Beth. I mean, there's that Nikki Jablava. How do you pronounce it?
Oh, she's going to get you. Nikki Javala of the Athletic.
Okay,
yeah,
she will. Before.
But don't worry, Nick. She will correct you when she corrects us all. Yeah.
Jablava. But she had that awesome piece on the Athletic that was almost kind of a bombshell with all the crazy Game of Thrones level stuff going on in the background of the Denver Broncos and the ownership battle. But it will be interesting. I mean, maybe they'll have to sell. I would be sad to see that happen, but also excited because the Broncos, I mean, that's kind of a dark cloud hanging over the organization right now, the direction there. So we'll see what happens. But either way, I hope it comes out where nobody tarnishes or hurts Pat Bowlen's legacy, because he, as much as, we talk about John Elway as the Denver Broncos, Pat Bowlen's right there with him. I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
He's on the Mount
John
Rushmore.
Elway's, yeah, and absolutely. And you know what? I feel confident in saying that Pat Bowlen entrusted this team to not only Joe Ellis, but to John Elway as well. And obviously the trust is included with Mr. Joe Ellis and the responsibilities that come with that. I think Joe Ellis gets a little bit of a bad rap at times, and I could see, different sides of the argument with regards to ownership. But at the same time, Joe Ellis has been penning handwritten letters to staff, thanking them at the facility for everything they've done throughout the COVID process and everything like that. He seems to take care of his personnel. He seems to take care of John Elway. John Elway seems to have a good trust and relationship with him. And you've got to think, and at least I like to believe, that's what Pat Bowlen would have wanted. And John Elway and Pat Bowlen, that relationship, I could only imagine what it's like, you being from, the very get-go, inheriting John when Pat bought the team. So I appreciate that comment. We don't have to go super into the politics of ownership, because I cannot get into that like Nikki can. Go to The Athletic and check that out, because it's definitely important. Terry Randall coming in with a hashtag Nick's Beer Fund. Terry, we appreciate you so much, as Nick takes a fine sip out of that orange Bronco mug. And it looks like we got the boss chiming in. Nick, what's he saying?
Sequestered in the tops of the Rockies, I'm getting my Broncos fix from MHI. So I think he's talking about you there. I wish I was sequestered in the top of the Rockies. My goodness. That's a dream. Someday I'll be on a mountain somewhere.
I thought of KJ Hamler immediately as soon as I got up here in Vail, because they had bear signs out. And for anybody who hasn't seen it, go watch Hey Rookie, Welcome to the NFL, or it's the pre-draft process of Jerry Jeudy and KJ Hamler. And they neither one have been to Colorado. So they're trying to figure out the living situations, and the situation of maybe we live in a cabin comes up. And the KJ Hamler, bears be walking in the crib and everything. That's the first thing I thought of as soon as I got to Vail. I was wanting to talk some football. So, no, Chad, we appreciate everything you do, man. Go check out the Huddle Up podcast as well with Zach Kelberman and Chad Jensen. Follow us at Mile High Huddle. Appreciate it, boss, man.
And Stu McPeak coming in. Thanks, guys. Great Broncos talk as usual. Stu always showing one of my favorite cities there in his avatar. Beautiful Seattle. Looks like it's sunset. So thank you, Stu. You are definitely one of our favorites here, always coming in clutch and supporting the show. It really does mean a lot to us. I mean, gosh, hard to put it into words how much it means to us. So, probably should get back a little bit to the Ed Donatel conversation here.
I'm feeling a little soft and emotional, Mr. Bowlen. That's a soft spot for me, and now I'm feeling all warm and gooey inside. Mr. Bowlen does that to a guy,
Oh, Lance, it's part of the brand where I pop that tab. I'm sorry, bro. I got to do it. Chad said, if you're going to do that, keep it out of sight. So I put the mic right next to it when I pop it, and then you can't see what it is, but then I pour it. So cheers to you, Lance. Back to Ed Donatel, though. I think there was something I didn't want to circle around to that I thought was really interesting in regards to Ed Donatel. Maybe a little bit of a confirmation bias on my end, but multiple of his comments really just hit me in my heart because I love them so much. First, he was talking about Jurrell Casey, and he said, this is a great veteran in our league. He's been a great interior player, but what he does the most is adds to the pass rush. That's really important to us. It gives us a push up the middle with the edge rushers we have. That's very valuable. Then he goes on a little bit later, and he talks about the Broncos rookies, McTelvin Agim and Justin Strnad, and their fit in the defense. And he says that it's a common theme in today's football. Most of the picks, you'll see them have to rush the passer, whether they be an interior player or an exterior defensive lineman. Agim brings that pass rush ability. There's a raw sense to him in that I think we can bring that out. And he does bring the rush. The other thing with Justin, you're going to see the speed and the explosion to the players that are in the coverage areas, whether it be defensive backs or linebackers. He brings that coverage element and the adaptability to match up with some great offenses in our division. I know that there's multiple phases to playing defense, but one thing that Ed Donatel harped on multiple times, the pass game, stopping the pass game. I know that there's some old heads out there, the Derrick Henry truthers want to pound it up the middle, offensive line truthers, stop the run. Guys, it's 2020. The analytics are here. The pass game is what matters. I mean, we saw last year, one of the best rushing teams we've seen in a few years. And the Baltimore Ravens got knocked out by Derrick Henry in a game. That takes away from my point. But the best rushing team was the Ravens, knocked out. And then you saw the San Francisco 49ers, great rushing team. They were up. Gosh, what were they up? They were killing them. It was like 28-10, something like that. Yeah. And then boom, explosive pass games. Chiefs cut it instantly. I mean, no lead is safe when you can not only pass the ball well, but pass it explosively. And that comes back to the defense. Stopping the run is good, but if you're not affecting the pass game, I don't know how valuable you are in today's NFL. It's all about the pass game.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a passing league. That's what the NFL is right now. It's definitely trending that way. I don't see it trending opposite anytime soon. I don't see any, big-time running backs being the number 1, number 2 overall pick in any of next year's draft. So, spoiler alert, running backs are not going to be picked number 1 and number 2. But no, I agree with you on a few of those sentiments. I mean, McTelvin Agim, man, I'm pumped about this kid. I got to see him down at the Shrine game down in Tampa last January. The Broncos coaches were all over him. I mean, this is a player that can play all 4 positions on the defensive line. He's not a traditional nose guard. I know he put some weight on, I think, prior to the season, but also a really good man. Seems like he is an excellent character off the field, but it's his tenacity, ferociousness, and versatility that ultimately are going to earn him a spot on this team. And I think he's going to be a young defensive lineman that we're going to see progress maybe a little bit more towards the second half of the season when things start to click a little bit more for younger players. Talking defensive lineman, Jurrell Casey, I cannot wait for Jurrell Casey. I'm not going to lie, I was a little heartbroken when Wolfie left. Derek Wolfe was one of my favorite players. I've got to cover Wolf for 2 years and just an awesome guy. So I was bummed to see him go. I'm happy to see him go to Baltimore, a team that has a nasty defense where he will be utilized, and I think he'll do a good job. That being said, I'd rather have Jurrell Casey, and I'm willing to take all the shots from the Defu fans and everything like that. I've got Defu gear too. So I'm just telling you, I like the 5-time Pro Bowler, 4 or 5-time captain. I mean, this guy is a beast. That's not to say that Derek Wolfe shouldn't have got Pro Bowls, because he definitely should have. When you look at Von Miller's sacks, when it's all said and done, and he's a Hall of Famer, and he will be a Hall of Famer one day. I don't want to hear that he's not, because he's going to be.
First ballot. That's the question.
Absolutely. He's don't know, but the career's still going, and we might see something completely different out of Von. But the first thing Von has said is that Derek Wolfe, he should be credited with a lot of those sacks. And you look at Malik Jackson, you talk about those Super Bowl years. Well, Jurrell Casey, I think he's a better version of Derek Wolfe. I think he's naturally a little bit more stronger. I think he's just a little bit quicker, and he's definitely healthier. We know that. That's probably the biggest knock I have on Derek Wolfe. And the guy's he's a badass, right? I mean, that's just the way he is. He goes out there, he plays hurt. Jurrell Casey, he's one of my favorite free agent acquisitions. It's hard to say free agent acquisition because it ultimately came through a trade with the Tennessee Titans, in which Jurrell Casey said he felt like he was, quote, treated like garbage. Is that right? Or trash or something like that? I think it was
a piece of garbage.
A piece of garbage. Yeah, that's, man, not nice words. Not nice words. And Ryan Tannehill, man, you better watch yourself, son, because Jurrell Casey's going to be coming at it week one. He's one of those guys that knows how to play through adversity. And I think that's one of the most important things of bringing Jurrell Casey on board. I don't know what his long-term future is going to look like, but I think Jurrell Casey is bringing a culture with him. Now, it's not a Peyton Manning culture where he's a Hall of Famer coming in and he's going to just change the entire organization. But you're damn right he's going to change that defensive line room. And, you look at some of these younger players, Mike Purcell. I can't wait to see what Mike Purcell looks like when he's hooked up with a Jurrell Casey. Talk about McTelvin Agim, Shelby Harris, some of those things. Man, this defensive line unit is going to get nasty, and I can't wait to see it.
Draymond Jones. Don't sleep on the third round.
Draymond Jones, man. I just don't trust Draymond right now, and I don't know what it is. I'm looking for a little more consistency with Draymond. When you go back to and you look at the film, I think sometimes he takes some plays off that he shouldn't. I think every player does, and then they're not in the league anymore. So it's one of those things, man, where I'm not counting him out. And you and I have debated about it back and forth. And I've said, look, man, I'd rather go with Mike Purcell. They're two different players, an interior versus a pass rusher. But it goes back to your point of getting after the pass rush. The days are gone of just having I'm forgetting the Patriots' name.
Wilfork.
Yeah, Vince Wilfork, Houston Texan, New England Patriot. Those days are gone, man. That nose guard going away. And, you look at even in Akeem Hicks with the Chicago Bears, he can get after it. He can get in the backfield. And he's not just going to be one of those big, sloppy, big uglies that's there to, plug up a hole. You're exactly right. The expectations to get to the quarterback, and between your pass rushers with Von Miller and Bradley Chubb, look for a push with that interior defensive line.
Yeah, and I want to come back to Jurrell Casey as well. He's an interesting player. Came out of USC, was not highly drafted, did not test exceptionally well. Typically for a defensive lineman, that's a position where the traits are normally easy to see, and they can come back to something you can point at, whether they are an athletic freak like Aaron Donald, or they just have incredible size and power like Akeem Hicks. That's not really the case for Jurrell Casey. He's a smaller guy. He did not test the best, but what he is an incredible technician with his hands. He is so good with his hands. He's playing, it's almost like he's setting up a guy in a UFC fight where, he'll do different things here, or a long-term boxing fight, set somebody up and then hit them with a counter move. After they're sold. I see what you're doing now. I had to think I'm going this way. Hit you with a counter. So Jurrell Casey, never going to be an incredible athletic pass rusher, but because he's so nuanced and technical with his hands, he's going to come in this year. He's going to have one-on-ones. He can disrupt. And not only that, you talked about bringing a culture. Because he is such a technical player, there's a teaching aspect as well. I mean, you have Agim. You have Draymond Jones. These guys who we'll come back to Agim. I actually have a question for you about him. But these guys who are still coming into the league, they're going to have to take bigger roles soon, maybe next year. I mean, Shelby Harris, 1-year deal. Jurrell Casey's contract is really easy to get out of. No dead money. So that's something with next year's salary cap being who knows what. That's a factor. But I think that teaching aspect, just because he's such a technician, is something that shouldn't be overlooked.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And he seems like a team guy. He seems like a locker room guy. He seems like he's going to go in there and inject. Troy Rank likes to say, it's one of my favorite words from Channel 7. He's going to caffeinate this defense. He loves to say it, right, with Drew Lock. The offense is going to be caffeinated. Well, you know what? I think the defensive line, they're going to be caffeinated, but they're going to be mean. I think Jurrell Casey, he's a very humble guy, but you know what? He's a defensive lineman. Defensive linemen aren't known for being the cute, cuddly guys that, are going to pet your new puppy that you just got, Nick, and, be all giggles and sunshine. They're mad. They're badasses. There's a reason they call them the big uglies. Jurrell Casey, I need that mean defensive lineman. I need that guy that, like you said, knows how to do the right things. And when you talked about martial arts, you hit it just on the head, Nick. How many times have we talked about offensive linemen and defensive linemen in the NFL community reaching out to martial artists? I don't care whether it's karate, jiu-jitsu, things like that. It's all about hand placement, right? That's all it is. And, of course, I'm making it sound easy, but even when I played at the high school level, man, it was all about hand placement and feet. Raw strength is only going to get you so far in this league. And maybe that's a reason Jurrell Casey wasn't highly recruited. I'm not so sure.
He was highly recruited. He just wasn't highly thought of as a prospect because he went to USC, but he's a little smaller. Yeah, he didn't test the best.
At the combine, was he invited to the combine? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So I mean, underwear Olympics, right? I love them when they do well, and if they don't do well, and they're my guy, I hate the combine. That's just the way it is. So yeah, I think Jarrell Casey's going to bring a lot to it. But yeah, McTelvin Agim. Talk to me a little bit about McTelvin Agim, because I'm pumped to see him.
Yeah.
He's got that high motor. What are you thinking of the young kid? What are your expectations of the young kid for training camp? What do you expect to see?
Well, honestly, he's one that I wanted to come back and ask you, but I guess I'll give my impressions first. I love that you talk about a guy who you talked about it, playing across the line of scrimmage, kind of played that 3-4 defensive end position, but then would kick inside of that nose tackle. And I think that's where he actually had his best snaps. Granted, a lot of times those were on third and longs, obvious pass situations where he could pin his ears back. Didn't really have to worry about playing the gaps in the run game as much. But the most interesting thing for me is he added weight through the pre-draft cycle, and the people that I spoke with said he lost no explosiveness adding that weight. So what does that mean? Is he going to – I know he played that 3-4 defensive end at Arkansas with a 3 front. That kind of played a little bit more 3-3-5 as well. But is he going to be a nose tackle at the next level? I mean, we're talking about getting guys who are pass rushers. And right. I personally would sacrifice a little bit of run-stopping girth if that guy can bring that pass rush ability. So I don't know where he's going to play. That's one of the guys I'm really curious about because of that versatility. Where does he line up? Where does he fit in the puzzle that is this 2020 Denver Broncos defense?
Well, I would say because he put weight on, I wouldn't expect to see him as a defensive end, right? I know that the Broncos, they've got their pass rushing linebackers, and I don't necessarily consider Bradley Chubb a linebacker. I don't necessarily consider him they're called edge now. It's bizarre. It's a whole new position. But yeah, when you look at McTelvin Agim and his weight, he's not sloppy either. He carries it very, very well. It's like we were talking about with Vince Wilfork. And Vince Wilfork, I would never want to run in the middle against Vince Wilfork. And hopefully he's not listening. But he's kind of a sloppier player and didn't necessarily have the best conditioning and things of that nature. But when I look at McTelvin Agim and he can play those different positions, I'm thinking, interior. I don't know if he's big enough and has the wherewithal to quite throw up in the nose there. Maybe that's something you work with Shelby a little bit and you try to figure out, are there any commonalities with Shelby Harris, to, like you said, Jarrell Casey, trying to find those niches. But in the SEC throughout his entire career, I mean, the guy had 14 and a half sacks with Arkansas. So, being a tackler, last season, man, I mean, 8.5 tackles for a loss, 5 sacks. He's getting after the quarterback. He's getting tackles, but I'd say interior defensive line. I don't necessarily love the nose. I don't know if that's a 3 technique.
That's a 0 or 1.
Yeah, but I don't know if I would put him at a 3 technique just yet. I don't know, man. There's so many different positions you can put him at. I think it's ultimately going to depend on some of his moves. I mean, how do you carry yourself? Offensive linemen have different abilities in which they engage their defenders. And one of the biggest things I would say, if for anybody, whether they be, an expert for Pro Football Focus or someone that's just trying to learn the game, watch tackles. Tackles should never be catching the defenders. And when I say catching the defenders, watch number 72, Garrett Bowles. And that's why he chokes people and throws them down to the ground. Now, we're not going to turn this into Garrett Bowles radio because – well, that's been done, and
that's old news.
Yeah, don't want to beat on a dead horse, so to speak. But one of those things. And I look at Juwan James. If he can stay healthy, and you've got that kick step, you want to ride him out. You want him to take the roundabout way, so your quarterback can go ahead and pop in. McTelvin Agim, he likes to go right through the middle, and I love it because if he's going right through the middle, you've got your edge rushers and Chubb and Von Miller coming right outside. Now, I'm curious to see what Bill Kollar's opinion of him is going to be. And for those of you that don't know, Bill Kollar is a man of mystery because he's old school too. And when I say old school, man, he'll curse you out like a dog if he's your player or if he's your coach, but he loves you. And he makes these players better. The Broncos actually stashed the defensive line unit as far as they can from the training camp crowd, from the media, because he's been known to throw a couple of F-bombs in there. And I'm excited to see what Bill Kollar thinks of him because Vic Fangio knows defensive linemen and linebackers. Ed Donatel, he definitely knows linebackers and secondary. But Bill Kollar, he's been here around. in Denver for a little bit, man. He's, we talk banging the table. That's the common theme, right? Banging the table. Well, he did bang the table for Adam Gotsis. It didn't quite work out. Derek Wolf's no longer here. You're seeing a changing of the guard at the defensive line position. Shelby Harris, don't know how long he's going to be here, but ultimately, man, the defensive line's going to be different. I think McTelvin Ajim is probably going to be one of those players you look at next year as, this Arkansas Razorback we were able to snag, maybe he's a little bit better than we thought he was. Maybe he's developing. Maybe they put more weight on him. Maybe you convert a little bit of that he's not a flabby guy, but maybe you convert some of that to muscle. Maybe you slim down a little bit. You see if you want to play him a little bit closer to that 3 technique. Hard to say, but it's nice to have options, Nick, something the Broncos haven't had for a long time.
Yeah, in my personal opinion, I do think he's a 3 technique right now in a 4-2-5. The Broncos are in sub package with only 2 interior defensive linemen. But I think ideally his long-term goal, his long-term fit will be that Shelby Harris is best spot too, in my opinion. When the Broncos are in sub package, he's the bigger of the 2. He's the one who's lined up closer to the center, shaded 1 technique. And I think that's where Ajim is going to make his hay. Maybe not this year, but as you talked about it, next year. He's a defensive lineman. They typically take a year. He's also a late 3rd-round pick. That typically takes a year. So a guy, you'll see flashes this year, but the story is going to be written 2021 and beyond, kind of like with, in my opinion, Draymond Jones. Last year, got a sneak peek. This year is where we're really going to figure it out. So go ahead.
I completely agree, man. And that's one of the reasons why, I know you're a draft nut and I'm a draft nut. And, I'm looking forward to going to the Senior Bowl. Never gone to the Senior Bowl. Be doing that this year after the Shrine Game, of course. And going to try to make it out to Indy for the Scouting Combine as well. But, yeah, I know you've had a lot of fun there, man. So I'm going to be asking you some questions, seeing what to expect. But the Broncos scouting department deserves a ton of credit, specifically from players from the Shrine Game. And then just to list a few, you're looking at Justin Hollins, who was an MVP of the Shrine Game 2 years ago. Justin Simmons was also in the Shrine Game. Phillip Lindsay in the Shrine Game. The Broncos are sending scouts all over. And I know the Shrine Game isn't necessarily the sexiest senior game or underclassmen road trip all-star week or what have you. But talent can come from anywhere, Nick. And that's one of the reasons we hit the road and we watch so many hours of film and try to figure out where we can project these players. Depth. It's something you talked about, and we're going a little bit from the secondary to the defensive line, but it's something that's been a problem for the Broncos. And I would even venture into talking about the linebackers a little bit. Depth has been a problem there as well. And, Chad, you and I were talking about Alexander Johnson a little bit, and I know there were some comments made there. But the problem I have with Alexander Johnson, the dinosaur dance, that's great and all. I need somebody to cover. You said it. It's a passing game. And Alexander Johnson, he's an animal. He's a tackling machine. He's great in the run defense. I need a Danny Trevathan back on this team that can cover players. Danny Trevathan did not compromise any of his run defense in the passing game, something that the Broncos haven't been able to quite replace since he left that 2015 Super Bowl team.
Yeah, that's a great point. And you did talk about the depth of the linebackers. I would, contest a little bit that if there's any position on the defense where you're okay not having incredible depth, it's that off-ball linebacker. I mean, defenses are taking linebackers off the field at historic rate. You're going to see much more of a rotation at edge rusher, at defensive line, at cornerback. So it comes back to team building. Actually, I was thinking about it earlier today and already starting to cultivate and build some ideas as far as what direction the Broncos should go in the 2021 draft. But if there's any position where you can live without depth because you're not rotating guys as much on the defense, it's probably linebacker. But I agree with you. You got Alexander Johnson. He's more of the war guy, the big, strong one going out there. You're going to send him on blitzes. If he gets a linebacker or a running back, good night, good luck, because he is so big and strong, nasty, great instincts, but not a coverage guy. So Todd Davis, solid player. He's one that you'd like to replace, but he's not as bad as people make him out to be. I mean, how many linebackers? He's solid.
I'm pretty sure he's led the team in tackling the past 2 seasons. Yeah. And, he's not the top 10 elite linebacker in the NFL, but he gets the job done. And he doesn't cause any trouble. He's a locker room guy. Coaches love him. Yes, absolutely. And he prepares. He's a professional. That's what got him to this point. He was one of those developmental linebackers once not too long ago. And I thought a lot about it Dakota Watson when he came back and had a brief stunt with the Broncos a little bit last year. For me, when you don't have a linebacker that can truly cover, and yeah, you're substituting into nickel and dime, and you're trying to figure out a way how to stop the Chiefs. I'm just going to say it. Stop the Chiefs, because the Chiefs are the model that everyone's going to be going after. We saw it in the NFL draft. Speed, 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 speed kills. So you're going to be looking for teams to spread defenses out. And like you said, when that happens, generally you're seeing substitution packages with linebackers and defensive backs. However, the tight end is a position that has plagued the Broncos for years. I've been asking, who's your Kelsey killer? I think it's a Kareem Jackson, just because you give him a little bit of padding. You don't have the linebacker there, so naturally a safety has to do it. Justin Simmons, I don't think he's got the size or physicality to stick Kelsey in those contested balls, but he's going to stick with him because he's a ball hawk and safety. So if we don't have that coverage linebacker, what are you looking at for an answer to the tight end position when you look at Travis Kelsey, Hunter Henry? I'm forgetting the Las Vegas Raider.
Darren Waller.
Yeah, we've got some good tight ends in this division, Nick. How are you going to cover him?
I don't think the answer is one single player, because that linebacker that you're looking for is exceptionally rare. That guy, I mean, there's probably 4 or 5 in the league. And even though, like, people will talk about Bobby Wagner, but Bobby Wagner made us say in a cover 3 defense where, he's not on an island. He's still really good, but he's not on an island. So it's going to take much more of a team effort. And I love the tight end. Again, everyone drink University of Iowa. Tight end you outside of Miami. But Noah Fant from my lips to God's ears. But that's
well, your tight ends don't get in trouble at Iowa either. The University of Miami, I mean, they've been known, to have Jeremy Shockey, get a little bit of trouble, and some of these
Jimmy Graham's
Greg Olsen. Yeah. No, I hear you. When it comes to you versus Iowa, I will take, Dallas Clark.
Yeah. But my general point though is, let's say the Chiefs next year, you got Tyreek Hill, you got Sammy Watkins, and you got Mecole Hardman, and you got Travis Kelsey. If I'm going to let any of those guys do damage to me, it's going to be the soon-to-be 31-year-old Travis Kelsey, just because the yards per target, the big plays, Travis Kelsey does bring them from the tight end position, but it's not like an 80-yard touchdown to the house like a Tyreek Hill, like a Mecole Hardman.
No, but they're third down conversions, brother. You're exactly right.
I will take it. Red zone defense. Man. I know it's frustrating as heck, but the problem. It's the Fangio defense. If you get killed over the top and it's one play for 80 yards, you're screwed. But last year, the Fangio defense gave up yard after yard, but they did great in the red zone. So if you make them meticulously march the ball down the field and you play disciplined football, eventually they're going to mess up. They're going to be the ones who mess up. And I will take my chances making them march it down the field, play by play, inch by inch, get a 12-yard drive. I dare you, rather than a three-play drive and then score a touchdown. So that's just my take. Maybe that's a little bit more of a conservatism. It's really, really frustrating. I get that. But it's not backbreaking. When you give up that Tyreek Hill touchdown, that's when you're done. That's when you're screwed.
Yeah, you talk bend but don't break, and you're right. And I think this is a foreign concept for me, even in year 2 with this zone defense, because we saw how successful that man coverage was. And you talk about that rare linebacker that can cover. Well, we had some rare corners too, and defensive backs. And, Chris Harris Jr., I don't wish him any luck out there in Los Angeles. I am very bitter because he should have gotten the deal done. But you know what? He went to a lesser team. The Chargers, every year is their year. No, it's not. I've heard enough
the uniforms, though. That's the peak of their year.
Yeah, and they also got a good soccer stadium. So, that's one of my things, man. I'm just trying to figure out, the Broncos I keep harping on it, changing of the guard. You're getting new corners. You're getting new defensive linemen. You're getting the Super Bowl 50 champs out and in with the new. And I think it's something that, I'm struggling to embrace a little bit, going from that Wade Phillips man coverage that saw so much shut down 3-and-outs, only for the Broncos to go out there, get a 3-and-out on offense and punt and try to get the defense to sucker a team into throwing a ball. But you're exactly right. It's bend but don't break, because Patrick Mahomes is going to be scoring. Lamar Jackson's going to be scoring. So at some point, you've got to accept it, and you've got to find a way to move past it. Maybe you're right. Maybe that's how we do it. It's okay to accept some of these third down conversions, but when it comes to the red zone, I better see some field goals instead of 6s.
Yeah, and I've been actually pestering Pro Football Focus to see how sustainable red zone defense is year to year. Haven't heard much on that. I'll keep digging, guys, but that was the big thing of the Broncos last year. They gave up a lot of yards. They're middle of the pack in terms of yards. but a top 3 red zone defense. And that's what it's about. You can give up yards all day. Guess how many points yards put up on the scoreboard?
0.
So I don't know. It's frustrating to lose to the tight ends, but if they're not putting it in the end zone, I'll take it. So anyway, guys, we have been going back and forth. Luke and I having conversations. We need to get to the comment section. I apologize to Bouye Beast John because we've just been going. He keeps flashing things out up here. Terry Randall coming in. Thoughts on Shermer's thoughts on the offense, and Block on the Broncos TV earlier. State of being Broncos country. Mr. B is the boss. Shermer had a lot of interesting things to say. I thought it was funny where he talked about the Broncos players are rumored to be meeting, and it's rumored that they're doing well. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Other than that, I guess nothing too insightful on my end. Drew Lock, we're excited about it. We're excited about the pieces. I think the thing that's the most interesting, though, is what he said about the running backs, bringing up Royce Freeman of all people. But the Phillip Lindsay, Melvin Gordon dynamic.
Bringing up Royce Freeman, I'm going to say it right now. That's a shot at Phillip Lindsay. That's not Pat Shermer taking a shot, but that's what I heard. That's saying, Phillip Lindsay's upset. Royce Freeman, we've all pretty much written him off. And I hate to do it because I said last year he cannot afford a sophomore slump. He definitely had a sophomore slump. Not play. Nick is doubling down on the Oregon Duck. Sophomore dump for Royce Freeman. But
I'm bitter. That was a pick. There was one player in that draft that I absolutely loved, and he went one pick before Royce Freeman, and now looks like a future All-Pro in Fred Warner. And he went one pick before Royce Freeman. So I was very bitter about that. Anyway, continue.
What can you do? Yeah, no, but I took that as a little bit of a message. Is don't forget about Royce. We said everybody's going to come here to compete, and that's what it means. We're here to compete, and by no means am I taking a shot at Phillip Lindsay. Phillip Lindsay's been the underdog. He has been Colorado's kid. He's one of probably the most recognizable faces in Colorado. He's done great charity work. Seems like a great guy. I haven't gotten to meet Phillip or really interact with him too much, so I can't speak on that. But I will say that competition brings out the best in players. And Phillip Lindsay's mad. Melvin Gordon's coming in feeling pretty good and sure of himself. He's feeling the love from the Denver Broncos and John Elway. Number 7, speaking of number 7, it is 7K week here at Mile High Huddle, so I definitely want to give everybody a quick thank you for the 7K subscription from everybody at Mile High Huddle. Be sure to head over to milehighhuddle.com. Get at Nick Kendall at Nick Kendall MHH. I am Luke Patterson at Luke Patterson LP. But when you look at Melvin Gordon, and we could go into this for another hour, Melvin Gordon v. Phillip Lindsay, they are going to need each other. Absolutely. It's going to be a physical season, especially when they take some shots from some mean safeties and stuff like that in the passing game. But I'm tired of the narrative of, the Colorado kid's getting disrespected. The Colorado kid's getting disrespected. You know what? The Colorado kid has also been the underdog that has proven everyone wrong. So no one should feel too upset. No one should, get too bitter that the Broncos are throwing shade at Phillip Lindsay by bringing in, I would say, a better running back for the spread offense. Now, Phillip Lindsay, hate to say it, he's not going to have another 1,000-yard season. He barely got that 1,000-yard season last year against the Raiders. That he actually got it. It went backwards for a little bit, and then he was able to get it again. So take it for what it's worth. Back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. Very, very impressive as an undrafted free agent. But I'm looking for a new narrative with Phillip Lindsay. I'm looking for an angry Phillip Lindsay because when he's mad, he does the best. And Royce Freeman, I think ultimately his downfall was Phillip Lindsay. Once Phillip Lindsay kind of took over the reins and really jumped out of the shadows, Royce Freeman kind of crawled into a shell. I don't know if it's a confidence issue. I don't know if it's a health issue. I don't know what it is with Royce Freeman, but Pat Shermer definitely made it sure Broncos country knows there's a number 3 running back in this town, and his name is Royce Freeman.
Yeah, my advice for Phillip Lindsay, work on the pass game. Gosh darn, man. That's the theme of the podcast. But Kevin Peterson coming in. Kevin, you're always in here. We really do appreciate it. You and y'all killing it tonight. Kevin, you kill it every night. Hashtag love. Kevin. So really do appreciate that. And Buana, let's keep rolling here. Manny Weiss coming in, always coming in. Thank you so much, Manny. $10 super chat. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Manny.
That means a lot to you. Oh, we got the Wichita State coming in, the Shockers, David Kilgore. Great job, guys. But how do you guys see ownership going? Could Elway or Manning buy it? Elway, I don't see. Manning possibly, but it would be more of a financial group. He'd be the figurehead where there's really somebody with more dollars behind them. And then it's kind of like the Magic Johnson model. Magic Johnson is the figurehead for the ownership for the Lakers, but he's not the money. He's just the PR guy. And there's obviously some, I guess, ownership in regards to personnel, team building, but that I think Manning's the realistic one there. So we'll see. I think the Broncos, I do think they're going to be out of the Bowlen's hands in the next 5 years, as sad as that is.
Yeah, I think so too. And all good things come to an end. And what's to say that other good things couldn't come in? That's not to say better things or worse things, but we don't know what the future holds for the Denver Broncos. I can tell you this: I feel good with Seven in charge. Has he made mistakes? You bet. We talk 7K week. I love referring to John as Seven because anybody knows when I say Seven, it's John Elway. And, John Elway, we talked a lot about the trust with Pat Bowlen and Nikki Javala's article from The Athletic lays it out beautifully. She is so in touch with Brittany, Beth Bowlen, all the kids, and seems to do a tremendous job. Now, when it comes to Peyton Manning and John Elway, I can tell you they're never going to work together. Two big dogs, it's not going to work. It's not ideal. I don't know where the future is going for John Elway. I really don't. That 2021 season, right, is yeah, golf. Yeah, I don't know, man. Never count out 7. He's got something up his sleeve, but 18, he's making the trips right now, and he's trying to figure out how organizations work. He's doing his research. He's turning down TV deals because Peyton Manning does what Peyton Manning wants. And when Peyton Manning wants to own a team, Peyton Manning will own a team. And you guys will be the first to know it. I just don't know if it would be the Denver Broncos.
We got Terry Randall coming in again. Terry always coming in. Casey equals 30+ tackled for loss /sacks. #Luke, I am not your father. Well, sorry, Luke. I guess we're turning to Jerry Springer here today. He is not your father. That would be great for Casey. I will say that if Casey has that much production, it's not just because Casey's great. It's because Von Miller and Bradley Chubb are killing it. So obviously, pass rushing synergy, really good stuff to have.
Yeah, and last year you look at him with 44 tackles. I think it was 26 single and 5 sacks, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he's going to produce. But you know what? You and I have said it too. We're both stats guys and analytics guys, but those can be manipulated in any way for any argument. So that's why you watch film. And when you're charting plays, Nick, what are you looking for?
Traits
and tendencies, trending things that teams are doing. That's what we are looking at as analysts. We take the orange and blue glasses off every Saturday night. I love it. I love the way that feels. Saturday night, prime time, 6 to 7, here on the Mile High Insiders with Nick Kendall. I am Luke Patterson. Terry Randall, greatly appreciate that. Thank you, sir.
#Nick's Beer Fun. Guys, I got bad news. Juggernaut. I'm out.
We're all out.
I'm dry.
Uh-oh.
So I'll have to go get another one here. It is Saturday night. Michael Soimatsu, please correct us. Let us know. Get at me at Nick Kendall. Please let me know how to say that because we'd love to have you back. And you deserve your name pronounced correctly.
Of course.
You guys, hope all is well. I'm so excited to see what Locke can do with his offense. Can't wait for football. Go Broncos. Man, you said it all right there. Cannot wait. Can't wait to see Locke. Can't wait for football. Can't wait for the Broncos. TikTok. We're one day closer.
Yeah, be sure to go and check out Nick's other podcast, Building the Broncos with Carl Doomer. I'm going to take a shot at Carl right now. Carl wants Sam Darnold over Drew Lock. So for any of you that want to give Carl some heck, please do, because he does deserve it. He is ornery, and I assure you, Sam Darnold does not need to be getting mono here in Denver, Colorado. So I'm going to roll with Drew Lock all day. I'm not quite on the Colin Cowherd train of MVP season, but you know what? I'm not on the Nick Wright train either. So I think somewhere in between is probably a realistic expectation for Drew Lock. If he can get the Denver Broncos into the playoffs, it's been a successful season for the whole team, the coaching staff, John Elway, and more importantly, your franchise quarterback.
Absolutely. Gary Palmer, 719 coming in. Said great podcast, guys. We appreciate you very much. Obviously, we got Buwana working the super chat here. Love you guys from Yuma. Hey, 310 to Yuma, one of my favorite shoot 'em up movies. So hope you're doing well down there, Gary Palmer.
I've
And
been through Yuma. Love Yuma. Love Yuma. Love it. I like to hunt in the four corners of Colorado. That's before I started as an analyst. I love the mountains. Absolutely love it. So, yeah, 310 to Yuma, baby. Thank you for giving us the shout out. That's the best thing about Broncos country. And I'm going to steal Chad Jensen's line from the Huddle Up podcast. Broncos country is not a geographical location. It's a state of mind and a state of being. And that's exactly it. Broncos country. You guys cover the coast to coast. We got Broncos Europe out there on Twitter right now. Can't forget our guys in the UK. We've got one of our very own, Keith, on milehighhuddle.com. He's one of the best. Yeah, so right now to Scotland covering the Denver Broncos. I talked to him all week, picking his brain. We've got so many great podcasts here.
James Campbell coming on always in the super chat over across the pond in Europe. So really appreciate it.
We got guys and gals coming from everywhere, and that's just a testament to how knowledgeable and loyal Broncos country truly is. We really appreciate it.
All right, guys, we are at an hour. We're going to start ramming through some of these 60 seconds. That's kind of like a part of the interruption where, the countdown's going. So we're going to get through some of these. Stu McPeak, how do you think our special teams will do this year? I think they're going to be fine. They brought in a better punter. Obviously, they paid Sam Martin. Yep, they punters. I mean, special teams, it doesn't matter. No, I'm just kidding. The thing that concerns me a little bit is the Broncos have been paying forward a lot as far as on offense and early in the draft, and a lot of times those positions, those guys, like, is Jerry Jeudy playing special teams, is KJ Hamler playing special teams? I'm just worried a little bit about the depth in the special teams in those coverage units, but they should be better. Although I caught a little bit of, I don't take my advice when you said let's hurry it up. But there was a little bit of interest there from Tom McMahon talking about the long snapper position. I smelled a little bit of irritation. He's like, why didn't you bring back Casey Kreider? That's not my decision. I'm not going to talk about it.
Coach did not want to talk about that. Tom McMahon's an interesting cat. Now, I know you're listening to the radio and all the different personalities and Broncos insiders that cover the team in addition to us. And he's a cool cat, Tom McMahon. I like it. But when you talk about the Broncos special teams unit, I'm expecting a lot because we've got a crop of young players from the last 3 years that need to start putting out. And the rookies, what's the easiest way for a rookie to start getting some more playing time on the offense or defense? Make your method. You're right. And what is that Terrell Davis method, Nick? What happened?
They were playing the preseason game in Japan. He thought he was going to leave. He stuck around. I think he couldn't get a flight out of Japan. He downed a couple of hot dogs, stadium hot dogs, and then coach is like, hey, get out there. You're covering the kickoff. And he went out there and absolutely laid wood on a guy in the preseason game. Though Mike Shanahan's like, who the hell is that guy? Terrell Davis, 6th-round pick? Let's get him on offense. That's a running back.
Right.
And then lo and behold, he becomes one of the most important players in Broncos franchise history. So, you never know when the opportunity is going to come.
Yeah, Stu, one thing I want to talk about special teams just real quick as we start to hammer away. I was concerned when they said, when Tom McMahon said KJ Hamler needs to learn how to catch NFL punts. I'm not quite sure what that means. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Nick, but I think KJ Hamler only had one touchdown as a return specialist at Penn State. I think it was on a kickoff return, not punt return. I know he's racked up a ton of yards, but he hasn't necessarily taken it to the house. Something that bothered me because I'm like, yeah, he's your 2nd-round pick, but get him out there. Yeah. Like, speed kills, and speed kills in open field, especially when you're going, sideline to sideline. That open field burning speed is something that he has, that Tyreek Hill has. I like that. When it comes to Sam Martin, man, he talked about directional punting and how directional punting mattered a lot more to him than can you boot it so far. He wants to limit that field I just explained. He wants to get a fast returner caught on the edge to where his defensive gunners are able to come in and swoop him up. So special teams coach Tom McMahon, I like the guy. I'm glad to see that he got another shot here in Denver.
Yeah, so guys, we got to get running here. Maybe hit a couple more, but before we get on out of here, go to huddleuppod.com. Get your swag on. I got my hat right here. I'm not wearing it because this is the other show, but the Building the Broncos hat, my favorite hat so far. Although I will say, Luke, the Mile High Insider logo is sick. I need some apparel. I'm going to be getting some soon.
It's going to be hot. And hey, I'm going to take a quick shot at Chad Jensen. Still trying to get a Huddle Up hat. I will be taking a shot at Chad every Saturday night until I get said hat. So
hashtag geographical, or what would you say? Geography?
geographical location, but he won't mail. Maybe he doesn't know my geographical location, and that's why I don't have the hat. But no, we really appreciate you guys. This has been one of our funnest shows, man. And I got to tell you, Nick, I was a little nervous trying to do this on location and trying to set everything up. I'm away from my mic. I'm away from my office, my comfort zone. But my most comfortable zone is talking football because I love it. I'm passionate about it. I can feel the energy from these comments. Guys, we're going to have a great season. You guys should be super pumped. I'm not saying we're Super Bowl bound. I'm not saying we're playoff bound. But the days of being non-competitive, those are gone.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know we're already running long. We got to do something for 7K. I don't know if they've done it already. We're going to just – it's all about us. Listeners, you guys get out of here. We're doing this for – I'm just kidding. But your favorite 7 Broncos of your lifetime watching, covering the Denver Broncos, just being a fan. Or an analyst. Who are your 7 Broncos? Off the top of my head, I'm going to go real easy. Just a quick, some of the best names. But number 1 for me, that Peyton Manning era. I always loved Peyton. I still love Peyton. He was my dude before he was a Bronco. I know he kicked our butts, but he's just too funny. That SNL skit with him where he's just beaming those kids. I cry. I cry laughing. That is so funny. Shannon Sharp, number 2. Love Shannon. Somebody called the National Guard. We are killing the Patriots. One of the best trash talks of all time. Number 3 for me, maybe this is a weird one. I know he's not the best guy, but I absolutely loved playing him in video games when I was younger. Bill Romanowski, that old school linebacker mentality. I loved him. I know he's a jerk in hindsight, not the best guy, but there's something I romanticize about Bill Romanowski. Number 4, the antithesis, I guess, of Bill Romanowski as far as the attitude, Steve Atwater. People talk about how nice he is. I've met him and spoke with him for hours at the NFL Combine. He's nicer than you think. Like it's unbelievable how nice Steve Atwater is. It's really crazy.
He's amazing. He corrected me when I met him at training camp, and he comes out and he goes, "Hey, how you doing?" I said, "Hi, Mr. Atwater. How are you?" "My name's Steve." No, you're a Hall of Famer. You're the smiling assassin that took out the Nigerian nightmare, Christian Okoye. I know who you are. You're a living legend. I completely agree, man. So you got one more, right? Those are 6?
I think that was 5.
7?
That might have been 4. I'll go Ryan Clady. I loved Ryan Clady. I think that's 5. Champ Bailey, great player. I remember being really upset when the Broncos traded Clinton Portis. I didn't understand positional value at that time. I was pretty young. And I was like, oh, they got rid of Clinton Portis, the best player. Champ Bailey, who's that? Wow, what an idiot. No. Yeah. And then number 7, saving it for number 7, John Elway. So that's my favorite 7 players since I can remember covering the Denver Broncos. I know some of those are basic on there, but this is off the cuff. So Luke, I'll leave it to you. Your favorite 7 players.
Yeah, off the cuff. I'm not gonna give you a lot of pushback. I'm gonna start number 1, John Elway. He's in my opinion, the best quarterback to ever play the game because of his comebacks. That being said, Peyton Manning, second best quarterback to ever play in Denver, bringing you your 3rd world championship, Broncos country. And then I'm going Terrell Davis, the new Hall of Famer. It's still new for me because I can't believe that it happened. So I got to go for the Hall of Famer, Terrell Davis as well. Steve Atwater, smiling assassin. Can't forget my boy Shannon Sharp. You can find him still arguing with Skip Bayless on FS1. And then, Champ Bailey. Got to have Champ in there. And I'm going to go Smoke Dog Al Wilson. Smoke Dog Al Wilson was one of my favorite players. I'll never forget it. I tweeted it out a few weeks ago, the Oakland Raiders game, the snow game, the stop on 4th and 1, and how Al Wilson, one of the nastiest hits I've ever seen, an Atwater-esque hit. So those are my 7 Broncos. But, man, you can go on and on. There's so many players that I've loved to grow up watching and that I love covering.
Yeah, and Kenneth, I see your comment here. Kenneth Booker, you always bring great comments. Unfortunately, we didn't get to yours today, but we had a lot to cover with the Ed Donatel stuff. So, Kenneth, we see you, and we will be talking. You always bring great questions. We were actually talking about you before we even started the show about how good some of your comments are. So, definitely we'll get to you next week. Unfortunately, though, guys, that's all the time we have today. We did ramble a little bit, but there was just so much to talk about with the press conferences, real football stuff, not just pontificating, real stuff to analyze. So that's great. Appreciate you guys so much. You can find Luke on Twitter at Luke Patterson LP and myself at Nick Kendall MHH. Make sure you head on over to milehighhuddle.com, an affiliate of the Maven Coalition and Sports Illustrated. Go to iTunes and leave us a 5-star rating and a comment. Your support can help us continue to bring you our Denver Bronco deep dives. Guys, like, subscribe, and share if you like our show. We're trying to get to 10,000 subscribers by the start of the regular season. That would be fantastic. Every single subscription there helps. So we really do appreciate that. You can follow the Mile High Insiders podcast and all our other great audio content by subscribing to the Huddle Up podcast wherever you listen to these shows. Follow us on Twitter at Mile High Huddle and at MHI_football pod. For Luke, I'm Nick, wrapping up another episode of the Mile High Insiders. Luke, you got anything for the people before? Oh, we did miss Pappy today as too. Good call. Do you have anything for the people before you get out of here? Give me one second. I'm gonna go give the people what they actually want for this today's show. You talk to the people for a second. I'll be right back.
All right, yeah, no, definitely going to let it loose a little bit. One of the biggest things that I realized with Melvin Gordon and Phillip Lindsay that I just can't get away from is when Pat Sherber says, it wasn't me that was pounding the table. That's a false narrative. Well, you know what? That also means that John Elway was probably pounding that table for Melvin Gordon. Now, to me, that's something that's a little odd considering that John Elway wanted to look at restructuring that Phillip Lindsay's oh no, here we go. How am I gonna talk Phillip Lindsay and you're gonna throw Summit, the newest member of Broncos country. Nick has a golden retriever pup. Is that right?
Yes, he's a golden retriever pup. We just got him 2 nights ago. I've been getting no sleep. So if I'm a little bit off my game today, bags under my eyes, not looking as beautiful as I normally are, you can blame this guy, but he is he's a handful, but he's really sweet. And my wife says, "Hey, Nick, get off the podcast because he's being a menace and I need your help." So, guys, we're going to have to get out of here. Really do appreciate it. Appreciate everyone coming in. We had the name between Summit, Moose, Pinecone, and Trail Mix. We picked Summit, and he's kind of a little bit of a thick boy. So, Summit fits. We really do appreciate you guys. And I guess, I always like to leave it with a Go Broncos.
Always believe in that Mile High magic, baby. We will see you next Saturday night, Broncos country. Stay tuned for the best Broncos coverage in Denver. Mile High Huddle. This is Luke Patterson, Nick Kendall. Always believe in that Mile High magic.